Hello and welcome to the very special Jumps Racing podcast here, because this is our Christmas edition where we're going to be looking ahead to all the Christmas action here in the UK and over in Ireland as well. As always, it's hosted by myself, Bobby Beevers, and delighted to be joined by Nick Seddon. Nick, great to see you. Firstly, I can't believe that Christmas is almost here, and it's so exciting as racing fans like myself and you, because there's just so much quality to look forward to.
Hiya, Bobby. Yeah, great to see you after a couple of weeks of me having to produce a podcast. It's great to have Sed back now.
Yeah, very well you did as well. Very well.
And I'm just very disappointed in you, to be honest, because for the people watching on YouTube, if you're listening on SoundCloud, it won't mean anything to you this, but Bobby has an enormous Christmas jumper on with Santa on, and I was really hoping he was going to say that he ho-ho-hosts, but, you know, missed the trick, mate. Missed the trick.
Maybe next year. I'll make a note, and I'll make sure I chuck that one in next year. Now, just before we go any further, just in regards to how you can access this podcast, if you are watching on YouTube, make sure you do subscribe. Tell everybody about it. You can subscribe on YouTube, but you can also listen as well on Apple Music and SoundCloud. You know what to do. Press the like button, subscribe, and you can listen to myself and Nick week in, week out, talking about jumps racing. Now, first of all, we are going to start with the King George, of course, which is an absolute mouth-watering renewal, I really have to say. Surname is currently the anti-post favourite here. Wow. This is an absolute superstar, isn't he?
He is, and it really is an achievement to be favourite for this race, I think, this year. I think that's the biggest compliment I can pay to Surname. The thing I will say before we start is that there's, at the time of recording, there's 18 left in. This is Thursday. If I'm right in thinking, Bobby, the final decks for this will be on Monday the 23rd, I think. So it's very likely that the 18 in at the moment, we already know Altior won't be here. Nicky Henderson's told us that. I reckon it'll be about 5 or 6, but it's the kind of race where all 5 or all 6 or all 7 are going to be bona fide Grade 1 performers. And yeah, Surname is likely to go off as a favourite, and rightly so, really, because, you know, we've waxed lyrical about him so much. He beat Altior. He was the first horse to do it. You know, in so many have tried. First defeat for Altior in 19 races. And he's the highest rated chaser in Britain. I think he's joint top with Kemboy. But he's British trained. He's the highest rated. It technically is his first try over 3 miles, but I don't think that'll be an issue. I don't know what you think, Bobby. It's a flat 3 miles at Kempton. He's a very fast horse. He's likely to make the pace. I think it'll be absolutely fine. I think Kempton will suit him. Cheltenham, the Gold Cup will be a completely different kettle of fish, much like it was with Clanders Oboe. We'll get onto him. But yeah, he's got an outstanding chance, and yeah, probably the right favourite.
Yeah, I'd agree with that as well. And I think it's important here because you said about the competition, you know, and we need to assess the competition here, because he's not going to have it easy by any means. And the second favourite at the time of recording is Lost in Translation, who we said a few weeks ago was very impressive at Carlisle. I really fancied him for the Betfair Chase. For me, Nick, he took it up a gear again. He performed well on the day. And, you know, should he turn up in that same, you know, mind, I think that he could be potentially a huge danger to Surname on Boxing Day.
Definitely. I completely agree with you. And the way I worded it, I think I've got it spot on, because I said that I think that Surname is the right favourite for the race, but I think Lost in Translation is the one to beat. We were both at Haydock for the Betfair Chase, and I was so impressed with how he went through the race. I mean, he hinted last year as a novice, you know, in those duels with Defi de Soy that he was a serious horse. He stepped up in trip. He routed them at Aintree and then battered them in the Colin Parker at Carlisle, which is right-handed, isn't it, Carlisle, off the top of my head?
Yes,
yeah. So that's not an issue.
Stiff uphill finish as well.
Absolutely. Proper breeding ground for champions, Carlisle. And, you know, we've said it before, to beat Bristol de Mai at Haydock Park, that's his home ground. In those conditions, everything was right for Bristol de Mai. And he went down on his sword, carried out on his shield, but he just found Lost in Translation too strong. He jumps well, he travels well, he just looks a serious animal. And I think this is I mean, Colin Tizard went mightily close to doing the Triple Crown with Q-Card a few years ago when he fell in the Gold Cup. Ultimately, whether he'd have beaten Don Cossack, that was a debate that went on for so long after. I genuinely think that this one, if you brought us back to when Q-Card, before he won the King George, I would have said that this one has a better chance of doing the Triple Crown than Q-Card. That's how high I rate him, and I do think he's the one to beat. But that being said, this is going to be a real speed test. Surname's really going to make this a real test for him. So yeah, it's a whole different challenge for Lost in Translation, but I still think that he really is. He could be something serious in this division this year.
Paul Nicholls will also have Clanders Oboe in the field. Of course, he won the race 12 months ago. Just had the one run so far. That was in the Champion Chase over at Down Royal, where he was second to Road to Respect. If he's going to win it again, Nick, can we, right, in all honesty, in all fairness, I do like the horse, but can we see him beating either Surname or Lost in Translation?
That's exactly the point. He's almost become the forgotten horse of the division, hasn't he? Because he was like the star had arrived when he won this race last year. And then when we took a look back after his run at Cheltenham, where he seemingly failed to say, and then he didn't fire at all at Aintree, we started to think, well, maybe the races didn't work out. You know, certain protagonists didn't, Waiting Patiently fell. Bristol Mai fell. We brought down Bristol de Mai fell. Maybe the race isn't as strong as we thought it was. An 11-year-old Thistlecrack, was second. But then Thistlecrack's come out and run really well. And I think we can write off the Down Royal run. We know he's a top-class animal. We know that Kempton suits, which is a plus that he's got over Lost in Translation. He might be being wrongly written off here. I think he's the right sort of price at 7-2. He should be bang there. I do think it's a harder race and a bigger ass, but it's unfair to write him off, certainly.
It was also announced this week that from the Colin Tizard yard that Thistlecrack is going to run in the race again. He won it way back, didn't he, in 2016. It was second 12 months ago behind Clanders Oboe. Now, I thought he ran an absolute screamer last time out in the long distance hurdle behind Paisley Park. Listen, I think he'll run his race. I generally do. But if you would say to me now, Nick, it's entirely up to you what to do with Thistlecrack throughout the whole of the season. Personally, for me, at the Cheltenham Festival, I will go for the Stayers Hurdle. Right? But that's just my own opinion. I go back for the Stayers Hurdle. But he's going to line up in the King George, and I do think he'll run his race.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think the strength of, if you weigh up the strength of both divisions and you look at the Stayers where Paisley Park is in and dominates, you would say that he's got a lot more chance of winning a Grade 1 or graded contest over hurdles than he does over fences. But the case is there for him to have a go in the King George. He was a brilliant second last year. We know how good he is over fences. He's won this race in 2016. And the way he was jumping his hurdles was like a chaser, wasn't he? He was flying over them, putting way too much air in. He's rising 12, so that's a big thing. And I probably will turn this back on you and sort of say that if you were the owners and you're coming into this race, and bearing in mind that he turns 12 in 11 days at the time of recording, or 12, 13 days, my maths is awful, at the time of recording, would you, let's say he won, would you consider retiring him on the spot, or would you have to be like, oh, goodness me, no, he's got to go for the Gold Cup now?
See, that's a tough one, that. It's a great question, but it is a tough one at the same time. Personally, it's one of them, isn't it, where do you want to go out on a high? That is the big question. You know what? I think I would. I think I would retire him, because then he'll be remembered for the latter. Then, which is what we want him to be remembered for, and obviously all the great races he won over the years. So I probably say, in all honesty, in all fairness, yes, I would probably retire him on the spot and say that's it, and we'll remember the good times. If he doesn't win, then I will go back to what I just said a few moments ago, and I campaigning for the Stayers. Said I'll go back for the Stayers. I'd take on Paisley Park. Whether or not it can be a match of him, I don't know. But if he's anything back to his best, then I do believe it could really serve it to Paisley Park in the stage header. But answer to your question, Nick, yes, I would retire him on the spot should he win. Right then, on the 27th at Chepstow, we also have the Welsh National. At the time of recording, Elegant Escape is the market leader, the winner 12 months ago. It could be a very good couple of days for Colin Tizard, couldn't it? In all fairness, if Elegant Escape was to go in. He's had 2 runs this season. He was second in the Charlie Hall behind Ballyoptic. He was third last time out in the Ladbrokes Trophy. And let's just emphasise that run in the Ladbrokes Trophy when I was there at Newbury. He was staying on. And for me, he has set himself up nicely to win it again for the second time.
He has indeed. I was a bit worried coming into this podcast because I was worried that the Welsh National could change complexion completely the second after we recorded it, because Native River was still in, and because Native River is so good and is rated so highly, that there would be a £7 swing. So if he comes out, everyone goes up £7. That's what's happened, because he has been ruled out of a Christmas run, which is good and bad, I suppose. I'd see the logic in it, but it means now that Elegant Escape is top weight. Last year's winner. He'll be £9 higher this time around than he was last year, which is a serious ask. It really is. This is, as you'll hear in a bit, I chat with Kerry about it. This has got to be one of the toughest staying tests in horse racing. I think Kerry says, and I agree with it, the Ida's probably, along with the National, the biggest test of stamina. This is not far behind, particularly. It's been chucking it down today. If it carries on, it's going to be very, very testing. But Elegant Escape has proven that he's a top-class horse, that he can win big races, go well on big occasions. He very much like his stablemate, Native River, never seems to run a bad race. He's always in the frame. And as you say, the Ladbrokes Trophy, he proved he can carry a big weight to a really big performance. That was a graded performance. If he runs like that again, he's got every chance. But he's going to have to give some improving types and some good horses a lot of weight. So it would be a really, really impressive weight-carrying performance if he could do it.
Now McGinty is currently the second favourite. Now, he was second at Sandown last time out behind Santini. How do you think he'll go on? Should he turn up in the Welsh Grand National?
He was second, behind Santini. It's a really interesting one, because the first note I've got here is we haven't seen yet whether that form has proven to be good or bad, whether Santini was going to go on, and because the first reaction for everyone was, Santini ran below form, made really hard work of coming back. But it might be that, now Ginty ran really, really well. If he has stepped up and he's run a grade 1 performer that close, 10-6 could prove to be a really good weight. He's an improving type. He was a good staying novice last term. He ticks a lot of boxes. The distance won't be a problem. I don't think the ground will be a problem. Yeah, he's got really, really good claims. And he's probably a touch short in the betting, but that's because he's an ideal candidate.
He certainly is, and I agree with everything what you are saying there. Now, Paul Nicholls has got quite a few entered. He's got Trucker's Lodge. He's also got Yarla Enki as well. Give Me a Copper, I've seen in there too. But if we just concentrate on Trucker's Lodge and Yarla Enki, out of those two, I would go for Yarla Enki, because if it is going to be that really testing ground, that's where Yarla Enki absolutely thrives in. When I was at Newbury as well, I was hearing what Paul Nicholls was saying, and he said in regards to the Ladbrokes Trophy run here this afternoon, he just needs that run. He says, but it's all systems go for the Welsh Grand National, third in the race 12 months ago, and I think he's got a huge chance. I really do. I think out of the Paul Nicholls runners, he'd be the one I'd be siding with.
When you started speaking then, as I think regular listeners of the podcast might have done as well, I started to think, I know where he's going with this, and I think it's no secret that you've got a real soft spot for Yarla Enki. And
what a horse!
I think everybody does. We were chatting earlier in the season wondering what Paul Nicholls would do with Jalarenki, and I think it's turned out that it's very, very simple. It's a tried and tested route. He's a very good horse. He's a very good staying chaser, and he will run really well in these big competitive handicaps. He's built for this race. He'll get the trip. You know,
he'll get his ground as well.
Absolutely get his ground. I mean, every time I think about tough staying chases, I think about that time that he won the Grand National trial at Haydock by 54 lengths. You know, he was a brilliant third in this last year. He's only £1 higher. He's going to run really well. He's got a big chance, but all three do. I will touch on the other two. Trucker's Lodge, you know, it's interesting he comes here. He's only had 3 starts over fences so far, still a novice. So it's very interesting that they've put him straight into the Welsh National. That's because, like with now McGinty and Jalarenki, he ticks a lot of boxes. He's shown loads of stamina, and he looks like the type that's been earmarked for this. As a result of him still being a novice, you know, he'll probably squeeze into the race. He's quite low down the weights, but that means he's going to come here off a great mark. He's got a big chance, and there's no surprise he's been well supported. And Give Me a Copper as well, interesting. We thought he'd go to the Beecher. They bypassed that because Harry Cobden was down at Sandown on Politolog. We sort of said, well, I sort of said anyway, after he won at Wincanton, that I still feel like he has to prove that he has Grand National credentials. This is the perfect place to prove his stamina. It's going to be a real test of this. If he goes well here, you know, he probably is a bona fide national contender, and his mark of 148 is very, very workable. So yeah, Paul Nicholls is very good at picking up big prize pots. We say this all the time, and he's got 3 serious chances in the Welsh National.
One horse I think will go well is Potter's Corner for the Christian Williams yard. I was at Uttoxeter when he won the Midlands Grand National. Again, you talk about, you know, your likes of Jalarenki ticking boxes there. So too does Potter's Corner. You know, a marathon test like the Welsh Grand National. He's got the stamina. He'll get his ground. He ticks a lot of boxes going into the race.
Indeed, we've got a Welsh National winner in here, and we've got a Midlands National winner, as you say. And because of that, he ticks loads of boxes. We know that he will stay because the Midlands is always a big test of stamina, much like it is here. And I think he's been really cannily campaigned so far this term. He's had 2 starts over fences, and he didn't show an awful lot, admittedly. He was pulled up on both occasions. But then since he's come to Chepstow and he's won over hurdles. So he just strikes to me like he's ticking along nicely. The mark is a nice one. He'll turn up here and he should be spot on. And I expect him to go very, very well.
Got to mention a few northern runners in the field as well. Both owned by Trevor Hemmings. Also, Lakeview Lad, who had a great season last year, won the rehearsal chase, went on to win the Roland Merrick, and Vintage Clouds as well, who absolutely hated the Grand National fences from what we saw in the Beach last time out. What do you think to the Northern Raiders that potentially are turning up?
Yeah, both have good chances. I haven't had a chance to chat to Mick Meager. If you've not listened before, Mick, I grew up in the same village as Mick Meager, so I bump into him every so often. So it's nice to chat to him. He's close friends with the family. So, but I've not been able to probe him about Lakeview Lad because I'm sure you'll agree with me here, Bobby. I think he might go to the Roland Merrick.
Yeah,
Weatherby won that race last year, but if he does come to Chepstow, you know, we know how much Trevor Hemmings and the Trevor Hemmings horses are built and for the National, how much he likes the National. So it'd be no surprise to see him turn up here. And he's an ideal candidate. He's got loads of stamina, runs really well in these handicap races. And yeah, I think he'll strip fitter for his run in the rehearsal chase. And very same for Vintage Clouds. I mean, I've never seen a horse hate the Grand National fences more than him, to be honest. He just didn't go a yard in the Beecher last time. That might have called the end to that in terms of Grand National. But that being said, he's a very good staying chaser, and he's the type that has always, for quite a long time now, has been earmarked for a race like this, in that he seems tailor-made for a staying chase. He's run well in the Scottish National in the past. He's got loads and loads of stamina. And yeah, he really is an ideal candidate for this. I wonder whether he will come because he's 33 to 1. Surely if he lines up, he isn't going to be 33 to 1 for this because he's got stamina in abundance. He's pretty much a very consistent horse. He was in front of Lakeview Lad in the Ultima behind Beware the Bear last time. At the last year's Cheltenham Festival, I just think he would run really well if he turned up. So I wonder why he's 33-1, but he doesn't have any entries. That's the annoying thing about recording this on a Thursday night, is that the entries are only due out on Monday, I think. So we'll see.
Well, we'll find out to see if Vintage Clouds will turn up then. Now, that is our preview of the Welsh National. We've got quite a few guests joining us here on this Christmas edition, and we're going to hear now from Kerry Lee.
The first thing we have to talk about you with at this time of year is the Welsh National, because I'm sure it's got to be a race close to your heart, with it being a race that you won back in 2016, of course, with Mountainous.
Absolutely. It's a race we look forward to every year. Obviously, my father having won it a couple of times before me as well. It's a race that is a little bit close to the hearts of the Lee family, shall we say. I've got 3 entries in it this year, but we're pretty low down the weights. Rumour has it that we might well get in, though, with Native River coming out. That puts the weights up 7 straight away. And with all the rain that's around at the moment, I'm not sure that many people will be keen to take on such a stamina test.
Is it the sort of race, where does it rank for you as a family in general? Is it a race that you always look forward to, with it being so close to home as well?
Yes, it is, but that's not to say that we overlook any others for it. I mean, it takes a certain type of horse to get a Welsh National. I mean, I know you've got plenty of high class winners in there as well, and I think it's a race for horses that have plenty of stamina and class as well. You've got to have the quality. It's a tough race, and there's no knowing really yet what the ground will be at Chepstow when it gets to the 27th. But one thing's assured, it will be a severe test of stamina.
Yeah, you're right in saying that, because whenever I think of the Welsh National, I always think of testing ground. I always think of a real stamina test. I mean, it's 3 miles 5. Do you think it is one of the biggest tests of stamina in the game?
I think so. The Grand National as well, going up beyond 4 miles is, and I think the Ida Chase is probably the toughest race of the season. It's a race that can find out some of the most dour stayers. But the layout of Chepstow, I think it's the only track in the country with 5 fences in the home straight. And I think that in itself, when you look from the bottom of the home straight, it's the best part of a mile home. It's a long way around there. But it's a great course, and it's very, very enjoyable going there.
And as you say, it is a shame that Native River isn't going to run this year, but I suppose...
Not for me, it's not.
Exactly. It could open window opportunity, but it doesn't mean that every year there's a quality field. And there is going to be another previous winner here in Elegant Escape as well.
Exactly, and I imagine he'll be top weight if he goes. And it's a race full of very classy horses. But if we get in, we'll have to have a crack. King's Monarch would be my preferred runner in it, and we'll just have to see how we go.
And while we've got you on the phone, it'd be rude not to ask you about Happy Diva. How is she after Cheltenham? Is she doing well?
Yes, Happy Diva is very pleased with herself for winning the Bet Victor Gold Cup. And the December race, the Caspian Caviar, just came up a little bit too quick for her. So we swerved that. If all goes to plan, then she'll probably head to Doncaster at the end of the month for the listed Doncaster Vase, before hopefully having a tilt at the Huntingdon race as well, and the Lady Protectress, if all goes to plan. But we've got to get there yet.
And you said in your column as well on the website that you were hoping that the form might work out quite well, and with Warthog winning, it did work out really well, didn't it?
Yeah, the form's been coming good the whole time. And even last season, Magic of Light came out and won yesterday. So yeah, there's form all around it. It's very solid form, which is always nice to have under your belt. But at the end of the day, my job is to keep her in form and well and fit and happy, which I think she is at the moment.
Sure, and with it being Christmas, there's always things going on in racing. And one of the big stories coming out at the moment I've got to ask you about is this news about the race times potentially being trialled and changed to non-standard. So rather than 5 past and o'clocks, it'll be, maybe 7 minutes past it. What do you think about that?
The 3:07 from Kempton has a certain ring to it, doesn't it? But Look, I think it's a great idea, and I think it's something we should definitely try. I think racing itself can be quite an insular industry, and we don't want to be seen as that, and we certainly don't need to be that. I think in practice it may turn out to be a bit tricky. It's very difficult. As a trainer and a jockey, you get quite frustrated at having races held back. You can have perhaps a fractious horse that you want to get to the post not too long before the off. And next thing you know, they're stood there waiting 5 minutes for a race in Ireland to finish, which to us is unimportant. Obviously, to the wider industry, it's highly important. So if we can meet halfway by having race time structured so that we're working to a time and we're not kept hanging around, particularly when the weather's bad, as it is at the moment. Similarly, when it's hot in the summer, you don't want to be out and about in it any more than you've got to be. Again, practice. Horses are animals. We can't keep everything straightforward. If you get one that spreads a shoe or you get a loose one, all of a sudden everything's out of kilter. So how does it work then? Do you just carry on regardless and ignore that? I don't know. The practice may not be as straightforward as the theory, but we've got to give it a try.
Definitely. I think the way I look at it is, I love the fact that horse racing is steeped in tradition, but maybe for the grace of a couple of minutes, and I mean, nobody wanted to see a race like the John Durkan clash with a race like the one at Huntingdon, the Peterborough Chase. So maybe a couple of minutes grace, and it might just be a simple solution for a problem that's been causing loads of problems.
But are we all then now having to sing off the media rights hymn sheet in terms of if the John Durkan was on at the races, would anybody know or care?
True.
Do you know what I'm saying? In terms of, because we had the split channels and because you have two different channels for all the racing and it's spread out accordingly, or has been until this year, what's New Year's, how did New Year's Day work last year, and so on and so forth. And I just think that a bit more common sense could prevail. Let's see what happens. I don't have all the answers, but it'd be very interesting to see how it does work out. Speaking
of common sense, I think you'll agree with me in saying it's nice to see that the jockeys involved in the Sandown fiasco have had the bans revoked.
Free the Sandown 7, absolutely. I was very pleased. I mean, obviously it affected me in fact that Jamie Moore would have been banned had the ban been held, and that would have affected him over the Christmas period, taking away a jockey for me, potentially 26, 27, 28, which obviously covers the Welsh National. He rode Mountainous to win. If I do have a runner in the Welsh National, I'd be very keen for Jamie to ride it. So how do you, it affects me. There's many knock-on effects as there would have been industry-wide. That aside, I think the incident itself was very unfortunate, and I don't want to sound, unsympathetic in that respect. But I think the right decision was made at the appeal panel, and maybe procedures can be put in place so things like this don't happen again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was one of those where I think there was a lot of mitigating factors. I mean, it was a very murky day. I mean, I was only watching on racing TV, and I know that the television images seem to be a bit brighter than they are. And just for there to be one flag, it does seem a bit, I'm trying to think of the right word. Old-fashioned, yeah.
Yep. I mean, they were starting point to points with one flag 50, 100 years ago. Things haven't moved on quite as they could have done, I think. When you think of all the technology that we're implementing around the industry, you've got flashing LED sponsorship boards around a race course. So why can't you have something similar for a race stop? Formula One don't have this issue. Okay, so they might have talk back, but everybody understands on TV immediately what's going on. We had to watch a whole circuit of Sandown, which is quite a long way itself, before a decision was made, and then nobody actually knew what the decision was. So I'm sure a lot can be done. Far be it from me to tell people what to do and when it should be done, but yeah, I'm sure improvements can be made.
Definitely, I agree. And I saw something suggested the French use a tannoy system, which I'm sure, I don't know how much the jockeys can hear of the commentator, but if a siren was rung, I'm sure they would hear it much more effectively than seeing one person with a flag.
I'm sure that's the case, but if it happened far, on the far side of the track, how does that work then? So I'm sure there's a way that can be done. I think it depends what kind of track you're racing around, whether it's an American style flat track, or whether English race courses are by their nature unique. So one size doesn't always fit all, but I'm sure something can be done.
And with it being Christmas, how does Christmas Day look for you? Is it up early in the morning to sort the horses and then dinner as normal, or is it very much work orientated?
It's pretty much a normal day. Start at 6:30 as normal. Feed, ride out. We might not ride out all of the horses on Christmas Day, but the weekends either side will work so that we can have a bit of an easier day on Wednesday. But yeah, we're going to have quite a few runners over the next couple of weeks, so it's a case of making sure they're fine and dandy and putting their best foot forward.
Smashing. Well, wish you all the best, Kerry. I hope you have a great Christmas, and we'll definitely be chatting to you in the new year.
Lovely. Thanks a lot, Nick. Have a happy Christmas yourself.
Great to catch up there with our very own Kerry Lee, talking about a variety of different topics in the horse racing world. But if we just pick up on the fact about Happy Diva, Nick, it's looking like, should I say, she'll turn up at Doncaster on the 29th of December for that listed mares chase, which is great because she could go up against a certain Lady Buttons.
Yeah, it was a nice line that Kerry said, that she's been very pleased with herself around the yard after winning at Cheltenham. And I said to her as well, the form is working out really well, because Warthog, of course, won the Caspian Caviar. He was behind Happy Diva. So, she arrived. If she does take a chance at Doncaster, all things being well, weather and everything else, that in the logistics of racing, she'd arrive with a fine chance. But yeah, crikey, it could be some race if a certain Lady Buttons turns up, because we are the unofficial Lady Buttons fan club, aren't we? So,
we certainly are. Yeah,
big race.
Yeah, no, I just hope that they both turn up on Townmoor on the 29th. Right there, just before we preview the Irish action happening over the Christmas period, we said we've got quite a few guests joining us here on the podcast. So now we're going to hear from Danny Mullins.
Thanks so much for joining me, and it must be a really exciting time to be a jockey, and also an exciting time to be associated with the Willie Mullins yard, because there's so many big names due to be running over the next 10 days or so.
Yeah, definitely. It's a great time of the year for jump racing fans, and I'm very lucky to be a part of the Willie Mullins team, and I've got to sit on some very good horses over the last few weeks, and hopefully over the Christmas we'll find a few more.
Yeah, one of those good horses that you've had the pleasure of sitting on is Chacun. There's a brilliant video of you on Twitter at the moment of working out at him at Punchestown last week. So you're the perfect man to ask, really. Just how exciting a prospect is he?
Yeah, he's a very good horse. The video was actually in Leopardstown last year. Ruby rode him in Punchestown this year, and he seemed very happy when he got off him. So I'd say all roads lead to Leopardstown with him for the 2 mile grade 1 up there, and hopefully it'll be the start of an exciting season for him.
And working at home and him on things, does he feel like a proper chaser?
Yeah, definitely. He's just so quick through the air, and that's what you need for a good 2 miler. Those kind of Gold Cup type of horses spend a little bit more time and maybe show jump fences a little bit more, where the proper 2 milers, they get down and they just let fly at fences and take no chances, and they often can pay the price with it, but a proper good one needs to walk the line.
And he's just one of a few in the Richie colours that is really exciting. There's another familiar name, Faugheen, going chasing. I mean, it's just a great story, isn't it? How's he at home and everything? He seems to have taken well to fences.
Yes, definitely. He was good in Punchestown the first day. He made his mistake, lost a little bit of ground, and Paul just gave him a chance to get into a rhythm, and he got going again and landed a little bit steep at the back of the third last, and usually 2 mistakes would really finish off any horse, let alone one. And then, you know, he jumps the second last and comes alive on the bridle and sprints away to win easy in the end. You know, that race, it probably wasn't any type of a Gold Cup or anything like that, but the manner in which he won for the mistakes he made, you'd have to be taken by the performance. But he'll need to step up again. But you'd think if he brushes up in the jumping department, he'll be an exciting horse for his age, going novice chasing.
I suppose that's the thing when you say that with his age, you know, he's rising 12 soon, and I suppose it's just nice to see him enjoying the game, because I, for one, I certainly thought that it might be game over for him, you know, last season when he had that little heart issue.
Definitely, you know, it's great that he's coming back and found, you know, a new discipline in chase, and after being such a good hurdler, you know, I suppose every stat is going to be against him that horses of that age don't win novice chases in Cheltenham or those places, but there's never really been a horse with his rating and his ability to do what he's done, and it's really unknown territory. So, you know, I think he will be able to step up, and fingers crossed he can.
And as we say, there's just so many big names. I mean, 2 more that are due to run over Christmas. I mean, Albu, Photo and Kemboy. I mean, they both just look like they're, you know, set for brilliant seasons again.
Definitely, and you know, there couldn't be more like chalk and cheese, like Album Photo. You know, he's kind of a lazier type, and you know, he can hit his flat spots in races. He might miss a fence, and then he comes alive. But you know, it doesn't take away from his ability one bit. I think Willie has mentioned he'll go to Tremor for the race he won last year, and probably try and chart the same path to the Gold Cup again. And Kemboy is back in action now. He was held up early in the season, but you know, he's probably looking at Leopardstown again, and he was good around Leopardstown last year, so hopefully he'll be able to pick up where he left off. You know, that win will go down in history as Ruby's last ride in Punchestown last year, and they look to be 2 exciting horses for that stay in division.
Yeah, I don't want to get into politics too much, but it's so nice to just see Kemboy back, because he didn't, barring that unseat in the Gold Cup, he didn't do anything wrong. And you know, last season, and we talk about, you know, Lost in Translation and Surname being in that division, but he's a really, really good horse.
Yeah, definitely. You know, Lost in Translation was very good in Haydock, and Surname, you know, Ascot Performance was very good as well. But I would think Kemboy has been there and done it at the top level, and they maybe have to get to where he was last season. It'll be an exciting time for any racing fan to be watching the likes of those horses take each other on through the season. And you know, I suppose it's going to be a little bit unknown who's going to come out on top. The King George will probably tell its own story for some of those English horses, but you wouldn't want to write off others, including Footpad, who's back with a nice win in Thurles earlier this year, and I think he might go for the King George as well.
How does it work for you, Danny, as a jockey? I know it's a manic time of year, but it seems a really strange one, because it's Thursday at the time of recording, but from Sunday, you know, there'll be 4 days of no racing. When do you start to work out where you're going to be and who you're going to ride?
I suppose that's just very tricky. It'll all depend. Willie won't know himself until maybe 5 minutes to 10. He'll be checking horses over, seeing how horses work, and you know, you're have declarations for the 26th and the 23rd, which makes it more difficult. They'll probably only do their final bit of work that morning. So much can change, and I'd imagine I'm going to be either Leopardstown or Limerick, but I'm sure I'll be going to Leopardstown, and then 10 minutes later I'll be going to Limerick, and I could be going back to Leopardstown again. My agent Ken Whelan usually gets a fair headache at this time of the year, so I might buy him a box of Panadol just to be ready for it, because Willie will just chop and change. But the reason he's chopping and changing is because he has so much information coming in, and he tends to make the right choice. You know, it's not often he gets it wrong. He'll leave it down to the wire, but he's just very intelligent at finding the right place for the right horse.
Good stuff. And last but not least, what's Christmas like for you? Is it riding the horses in the morning and Christmas dinner? Is it all the trimmings, or very disciplined meal?
I suppose it depends on the weights on the 26th, and you know, I'd usually ride out on Christmas morning. To me, that's my favourite part of Christmas Day. The other sitting around and looking at TV for the afternoon, I think about 6 o'clock on Christmas Day, I'd definitely have an onset of cabin fever, and probably head out with the dog or something like that, rather than sitting around. And then once you get back racing the next day, it's all systems go until the new year, and you know, that's the exciting part of it.
Not a Gavin and Stacey man, no.
No, we'll find a new series maybe on Netflix and fly through that.
Oh, well, Danny, thanks so much for chatting to me, and I wish you all the best for the Christmas period.
How fantastic was that to have Danny Mullins here making his debut on the podcast? A great talker, should I say. Great to have him on as well. And I think, Nick, we should start with that Grade 1 chase over in Ireland, which is sponsored by Paddy Power. Chacun pour soir, who's 2 from 2 since joining Willie Mullins, and you know, wearing the famous Richie silks as well. Looks a very nice type, one to keep on side this season.
He does. I don't think I remember a time or a horse recently that's had more hype around him, on Twitter at least, than Chacun pour soir. Everyone you speak to seems to think that he's the second coming, and the evidence there is really starting to mount up, because he came back after 1,000 days off the track last March, dotted up. He in a novice race, a minor race, stepped up straight into Grade 1 company, took the scalp of a certain Defi de Soy, and won at Punchestown. You know, Defi de Soy is now third favourite for the Champion Chase. And there's a brilliant video which we chat with Danny about of him working on the track at Punchestown last week. Danny was lucky enough to ride him, and he looked electric there as well. He looks a bona fide Grade 1 horse. I suppose that this will tell us whether he is. There are some really interesting types in here that we'll get on to. Silius Emery, a certain Simply Ned, who's rising 13. But yeah, you know, he's 7-4 on. He's currently second favourite for the Champion Chase behind Altior, in front of Defi de Soy. He may be favourite after this. Who knows? You know, it's going to be some debate after this whether he would put it up to Altior, whether Altior will take his chance. It's really starting to hot up, this race. And yeah, this should tell us plenty. Yeah,
Chacun pour soir is definitely one to keep a very close eye on. Very, very exciting with what we've seen so far. Now, you mentioned the old boy there, Simply Ned, for the Nicky Richards yard. He's actually won this race for the previous 2 years. I'd love it if he'd win it for a third consecutive year. I can't really see it, though, with the greatest respect.
Yeah, very Kevin Keegan of you, that one.
I was about to go into that. I'd love it. I'd love it if he'd win.
To be honest, you know, how on earth could you even try to knock Simply Ned? He's rising 13. He won this in 2017. And I tell you what, the horses he's beaten to win it as well. He beat Min in 2017. We know how good Min is. And then last year he beat Footpad, who admittedly had a bit of a stuttering year, but has romped back to form this year. You know, they're no mean feats, and the horse is in behind as well. But serious Grade 1 contest. There's something about Leopardstown that seems to bring him out. And as a 12-year-old, it's astonishing. You know, the fire is still in the belly. We saw that in the slower chase when it looked for half a second like he was going to get up. Yeah, goodness me. There won't be a dry eye in the house to say an old cliche if he wins. You know, we mentioned about Thistlecrack. he could get retired on the spot if he won the King George. I really hope if Simply Ned did that he would be retired on the spot. It would be one heck of a farewell. And yeah, I'd just love to see him get round in one piece, to be honest. And hopefully, he might put it. It'd be some race, to Chacun pour soi. You fancy yourself as a Grade 1 chaser, do you, mate? It could be really good watch.
Yeah, no, I think as well. It's right what you say. It just comes to life in the races as well. There's just something about the race what just clicks for him, and everything falls right for him. It would be great if he could win it for the third consecutive year. Now, Plutard could line up in this as well. Won the Close Brothers novice handicap chase at the Cheltenham Festival. Was a beaten favourite though last time out, Nick.
Yeah, I do quite like this one. As you say, won the Close Brothers, and I remember he ran all right. It was in that race where there was a few big names, and I didn't think he run that badly. The one thing I would say is I think this trip might be on the bit of a short side for him, like it was last time out. It's interesting to see him take his chance here. I do think he's a very good horse. I think he is a graded horse. I don't think he's masquerading, a handicapper masquerading. I do think he will make up into a graded performer this year. I just think it will probably be over 2.5 miles. So he has the talent to get involved, particularly if it's testing. He's an interesting type. I do think he's a good horse.
Let's have a look at the Savills, shall we? Because this looks a really good renewal. I suppose the first point we need to make, Nick, is that Kemboy should be returning to action in this.
He should do, yeah. And I think the point here is, and then this is going to be a brilliant race, and I'm being really selfish, but I'd love to see him at Kempton. Imagine it would just had a whole new diamond. Oh goodness me! Because I say that because he was brilliant last year. The only blot on his copy was when he fell at the first at Cheltenham, so we can forgive him for that, considering that he then went on to destroy the likes of Clanders Oboe, Bristol Demai, and Elegant Escape at Aintree in the bowl. And then he beat a certain Boum Photo in a really good race, fair and square at Punchestown in their Gold Cup. So he is,
Ruby's last ever ride.
Yes,
apart
absolutely.
From the charity one. Apart from the charity one.
Last ever ride. Oh no, I assume the charity ride is on the rules, but last ever professional ride. Last ever.
That's the one.
There you go. But yeah, I mean, I'd go as far to say that had things gone a little bit differently at Kempton, it might be at Cheltenham. Sorry, it might be now that we're talking about a treble festival winner. I think he's that good. I think if he'd have stayed on his feet, he had every right to be right in the mix in the Gold Cup. He was a brilliant winner here. He tore the field apart, and he's very beat for all that this year's field is a stronger one.
Presenting Percy. Now, he was actually a favourite, wasn't he, for the Cheltenham Gold Cup this year. Now, he has had the one run so far this season. He was third in the John Durkan. One
run coming into this more than he had last year.
Yes,
the less said about last season, the better. It just didn't go well. I don't know what went on, really. They were trying to campaign him cannily, get him to the Gold Cup. The ground never seemed to be right for him. I always think that, the racehorses, they should be kept fit and racing.
Yeah.
So it's nice to see him being campaigned a bit more. And, he was chucked in the John Durkan, and I thought he ran really well. The trip was a bit short for him, so the step up to 3 miles will suit. He looked a horse out the top draw when winning the RSA in 2018. So this is the time for him now to step up. He's got the opportunity to show he's a top-class Grade 1 performer. Come and beat me is the cry from Kemboy. It should be a really good race.
The horse, I think, could finish second behind Kemboy. Is a certain road to respect. Really liked his performance last time out in the Champion Chase at Down Royal. We've already mentioned beat Clanders Oboe. He's
as consistent as it gets, really. He's a proper Grade 1 performer. He's always in the frame. If you look back at his form last year, he was hitting the frame in Grade 1s time after time after time, including here. He was third in this race last year. He was beaten a long way, but the way that Kemboy was ridden, it was emphatic. I wouldn't hold that against him too much. I think it's a stretch to say that he could turn the form around, but he'll be there again, there and thereabouts. He'll run his race, and as you say, he's got a brilliant chance of finishing runner-up. Yeah, certainly.
An Boum photo as well, Nick, could potentially turn up in this. We already mentioned did win the Cheltenham Gold Cup. It was Willie Mullins' first ever Cheltenham Gold Cup success. Just needs to win the Champion Chase now, the Cheltenham Festival for Willie Mullins. But, should Boum photo turn up as well? Another one you just cannot rule out.
No, you can't rule him out. I think we will say, like, as you've just heard, Danny sort of hinted that it was a bit up in the air with him because he started last season in that listed race at Tremor on New Year's Day. He sort of hinted that could be the plan for him again, but it's interesting that the news came out today that he's still entered for the Savills. So I hope he comes here because it'll just improve the race. He's got a job in his hands to turn around the form with Kemboy, but that was a brilliant race, and he's a Cheltenham Gold Cup winner. So it's not insurmountable that he can overturn that form. He's a top class animal as well. He's 8-1 at the time of recording. If he turns up, he won't be anywhere near that price. He'd have a big chance, and it would just enhance the race even further.
And if we just mention as well this race over at Limerick, because if you look at what potentially could turn up, Sam Crow, Faugheen, Lorena, Battle Over Doyen, Fakir Duderis, Solserete, this could be a fantastic novice chase over the Christmas period.
It could. I think the thing about Irish racing at this time of year, I think racing at this time, it's unfair to say Irish, racing at this time of year is that the decks don't come out until Monday. So we get teased with these potential scenarios and we get all excited about them. And I really hope this comes to fruition. Fakir Duderis is 12-1 for this race at Limerick over 2 mile 3. So I assume he's going to go somewhere else. I imagine he's entered in the Christmas Novice Chase over 2 mile and a furlong at Leopardstown. So he'll probably go there. Lorena's also entered in that race at Leopardstown, but she might come here. She's a bit more flexible, in terms of where she'll get. And we'll start with her. She's at the top of the 2 mile division at the moment. And if you trust the anti-post betting, 1 start over fences so far. But we know how good she is from her hurdling days. There's plenty more to come from her. She was an emphatic winner on Chasing debut. She's favourite at the time of recording for the Arkle. If she comes, she runs well. And Faugheen as well. I don't know what to make of him. He's an 11-year-old novice chaser. He's going to be 12 in 2 weeks' time. If he wins this, he's going to be favourite for the novice chasers at Cheltenham. He's 12. It's just brilliant. Because I remember just being so disheartened and disappointed and feeling for the horse after Aintree when he was pulled up and it came out that he had a heart problem, thinking, I just hope he's all right. And to see him 6-7 months down the line, winning over fences. I know he sort of never really looked like he was going to get going, and then all of a sudden roared front and came home. He's worth his place. It's great to see him back. Hopefully with that experience under his belt, he starts jumping his fences a bit more fluently. But I think if Sam Crow lines up, he'll have a job on his hands. Again, whether he lines up, he's got 3 entries. He's entered Leopardstown twice. Interestingly, in the Fort Leany, that 3 mile novice. If it was me, I'd be putting him in that because I think he's a 3 mile chaser in the making. But it's still early days with him, and it's just great to see him back on a roll. There was that would he or wouldn't he question when he loomed up alongside Fakir Duderis last time out before falling 2 out. I think he would. I think he was travelling really, really well. He looked like the horse of old. The interesting thing with him is that when we talk about the horse of old, he was still a novice. So in theory, there should be more to come from him yet. Michael O'Leary said he was a Gold Cup horse, although 2 years ago. I said they should chuck him in the Gold Cup because I'm a mad optimist. He's a big prospect. He's 9-10 at the moment in the betting. So perhaps that suggests he'll come to Limerick. It could be a really, really good race. And Battle Over Doyen as well. Brilliant hurdle last year. 2/2 over fences so far. The only blot on his copy so far has come in the Ballymore. And we can forgive him for that. This seems like his game, chasing. And he's entered in the Fort Leany as well. So maybe he'll go there over 3 miles. It would make sense. But he's a huge prospect. And Ireland is in serious danger of shadowing Britain at the moment, isn't it? Because there's just, especially the Willie Mullins yard, I don't know how he places his horses. I think I would tear my eyes out trying to place them like Willie does. No wonder, as Danny says, he's going to leave it so late in the day, because they must have debate after debate after debate to work out where they're all going to go. I mean, Footpad's got about 9 million entries. So, yeah, I mean, we could talk about this all day. So it really is shaping up to be a brilliant few days of racing.
It certainly is indeed. Now, just before the podcast comes to a close here, we're going to catch up now with Ed Quigley. He's got a variety of stuff to go through, including furious selections over the festive period.
Now, Christmas is a time of year for many things, spending time with family, eating luxurious dinners, but there's also a time of punting as well, because there's loads of betting opportunities over the next week or so, and in that sense, there's no better man to chat to than our very own long shot Ted, a columnist on horseracing.net, Ed Quigley, who can hopefully give us plenty of betting angles, Ed. Merry Christmas and hello, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, Merry Christmas, Nick. Thank you very much. Yeah, look, if I can find time, or at least convince my family there's time for punting amongst the burnt turkey, etc., then I'll be very happy. But no, as you say, it really is a stunning time of year. Just going through the entries over the last couple of days, the big guns are being rolled out of force now, aren't they? And obviously Kempton is going to grab all the highlights, but some cracking racing in Ireland as well. Let's not forget the Welsh National. It comes thick and fast.
How's your Christmas day looking? Do you sneak off after Gavin and Stacey for a bit of form study, or?
I will be watching Gavin. I will be watching Gavin and Stacey. I'm a big fan of that programme. But yeah, I think I'll be after that. I think you're right. Sneak off, just do a little bit last minute form study. But now, as you say, it's a brilliant time of year for racing, and really looking forward to it. Just fingers crossed the weather doesn't wreak any kind of havoc.
Well, I'm glad to have you on side, because Danny Mullins doesn't watch Gavin and Stacey. And, you know, I'm just glad that somebody does, because I felt like I was on my own in that sense.
Well, I did tell him the Father Ted Christmas special was on, so he was rather happy with that. So I suppose that's kept him happy for a few days. But yeah, he's missing out. So yeah, I've told him to tune in for that one.
Now, we'll start with the King George. I'm recording, so I believe that there are now 7 entries for the race. There's 5 that we'd expect, and, you know, of the... It's surname and lost in translation at the top of the market. This just looks a stellar in your head.
Yeah, very small but very select field, isn't it? And as you say, the quality is there. I mean, you could kind of pad the race out, if you like, with horses rated a stone inferior, but it wouldn't really add anything to the contest. And it's always going to be the way when you've got a really top-class 3-mile chase in Ireland, the Savills Chase being held a couple of days later. Invariably, the kind of Irish challenge is not going to be as strong as it could be. But nonetheless, as you say, to have surname lost in translation, last year's winner, Flanders Oboe in this lineup. Sounds like Footpad is making the journey across. He should be absolutely, really looking forward to seeing him, is what I should say, with the Simon Near connections there. And it's a fascinating race. I believe La Bagoa, of course, is the horse that one great trip's been left in there, and will run if they'll consider running the mare if the ground does dry up. At the time of recording, there's a lot of rain around, but when I looked at the forecast, kind of Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, into Boxing / St. Stephen's Day, the kind of weather was looking a bit kinder. So I think they're keeping a weather watch with her. And in regards to ASO, I think it might be the opposite kind of angle with Venetia. They're thinking a bit of soft ground, the race will cut up, and ASO could run around and pick up some nice prize money. And then, of course, we shouldn't forget the old boy Thistlecrack, approaching 12 years young, and he will be going there. The connections Uman and Aring, whether to have another crack at Paisley Park or not, they've decided to have a tilt at this and then kind of make a plan afterwards. So, as you say, it's a small field, but absolutely brimming with quality.
Yeah, and readers of your column on the site will know this already, but at first glance, it's very difficult to separate the form between surname because of that stunning win over Altior, lost in translation, brilliant win in the Betfair Chase. But me and you are very much on the same page in that, lost in translation looks a really good price at the time recorded.
Yeah, I'm with him. Look, surname has been absolutely brilliant, and you could argue he was produced on the standout piece of chase form for the season, which, beat Altior for the first time over fences. Altior never lost a race going into that contest, so that does look pretty good form, doesn't it? There's no way you can take into account perhaps Altior was a bit undercooked, it didn't like soft ground, but surname jumped and gallops. And, considering Paul Nicholls said that was just a prep for the King George, that kind of makes things a bit frightening. Officially the highest rated chaser in England, clearly he merits plenty of respect. I do just have a niggling doubt as to whether, there's a lot of talk about without your Stader trip going up to 3 miles. Well, are we taking it for granted that Surname will see out 3 miles, especially if the ground's on the soft side? He used to be a very free-going type. As he's getting older, he is settling better. I will give him that. But he's against Lost in Translation, who I think has got this beautiful blend of speed and stamina. He mixed it with some very top-class horses, including Defi de Soy, etc. He beat over 2.5 last year, and then he's gone over 3 miles on 2 occasions at Entry, where he ran away from a classy field, including top of the game, was the RSA Chase winner. And of course, as you mentioned, in the Betfair Chase, over 3-1 against Bristol Demai, or Haydock Demai, as he's got the nickname, because he never loses around there. Well, he jumped and travelled impeccably, and then quickened away from him nicely in the end. So I'm struggling to see what the issue is with Lost in Translation here. And so I'm making favourite for this race, because I just think over this trip, it's swinging the balance more to Lost in Translation's favour, especially around Kempton. And I'm really looking forward to seeing him. He is a most wonderful jumper you'll see. He really is. He was always foot perfect, apart from the last couple where he got a little bit tired at Haydock. Before that at Carlisle, he was phenomenal. At Aintree, jumped beautifully. I mean, he really just take lengths out of his rivals at his fences. And so, I think he's ticking a lot of the right boxes. But I mean, the final point I would make on him is, if they ride him with great restraint, like Robbie Power did at Haydock, it's not necessarily going to be he's not going to be a hostage to his own fortune, in the sense that it's going to be such a small field. When we saw a bit of carnage last year, didn't we, with waiting patiently being brought down, all sorts of issues. He's got this small field to negotiate. I don't think it's going to be an issue if he's held up behind a wall of horses. It makes life a lot, it's one less worry to worry about. If you had a 16-runner King George and you were going to anchor him out the back, then it would be a different kind of scenario. So I think he would be favourite in my book, and I think he's the most likely winner.
Yeah, I really think he's a serious horse, and I think we could be looking at the first Triple Crown winner since Corto Star, personally, but we will see. Now we'll talk about the Savills Chase as well. We've got another top class chaser in here in the form of Kemboy. If I had my way, I'd have him in the King George as well, but he takes his chance here, and it's a stellar renewal. But at the prices, you've put one up against it.
Yeah, I mean, this might be a bit of a mug now, because this is turning out to be one of the best renewals of this race in ages. Obviously, Kemboy won the race last year, in emphatic style. Listening to the quotes, it sounds like Mullins is prepared to roll the dice. And album photo, of course, the Gold Cup winner, and Kemboy both lock horns in this contest. You've also got Road to Respect in there as well, presenting Percy. Some very good horses, but at the price, the kind of the fifth one in the market. Delta Work. He's a bit of an enigmatic character, it has to be said, and his flaw so far has been his jumping. Whenever he's been beaten or not performed to his best, it's been through nothing other really than purely his ability to get from A to B, which I suppose is name of the game. But I always take the angle, you could teach a horse to jump, you can't teach a horse to have an engine. He's clearly got a very, very big engine. I mean, when he won the Grey One at Punchestown at the back end of the season, he got his jumping together. He absolutely pinged everything, and he won in a common canter. And I just, this is a horse who won 3 Grade Ones last year, made a couple of little niggly errors in the RSA at the wrong time, which I think cost him. And of course, on his reappearance at Down Royal, behind Road, respecting Clanders Oboe, well, I think his jumping went to pieces I think there's 3 fences where he met them all wrong. And so there's a little bit of a leap of faith with him. But as I said, he clearly is a horse with so much ability that when he does get it right in the jumping department, it clicks, he really is a force to be reckoned with. And so the market does reflect his frailties in the jumping department. But I think around 7 to 8 to 1 mark, that kind of offsets, that kind of liability, if you like. So I think he's really, really interesting. And I see he's still floating around the 25 to 1 mark for the Gold Cup. It's one of those, if you take the view that he's going to win this, then obviously he's going to be single figures for a Gold Cup after it. So that could interest punters as well from a long-term perspective. But I thought Delta Work, yes, he's in an incredibly hot race, but if he gets his act together over his fences, I think he'll be bang there.
I agree with you. I think sometimes the case with these Irish horses is that, his run in the RSA Chase sticks in the memory more than his Grade 1 successes over in Ireland.
Yeah.
Very much a serious horse. And Staying Chase is very much on the agenda at the moment, because we'll jump now to the Welsh National. and I know Native River isn't going to run, but we do have last year's winner here, Elegant Escape, carrying top weight, his favourite, and this looks wide open as well.
Well, obviously, Elegant Escape's going to make the weights. He's higher than last year, and it's going to be a tall order. I think he's off 164 now, isn't he, whatever. So he's going to have a welterweight kind of burden here. But yeah, my anti-post fancy of this tipped a little while ago, of course, was Trucker's Lodge, which I put up in my column, and I'm absolutely chuffed, really. I think he's ticking all the right boxes. He's going to be getting £25 from Elegant Escape. He's got a cracking record at Chepstow, loves soft ground, he stays, and I really like his claims. I mean, to balance it, the kind of counterpoint would be his lack of experience over fences, was he only had 4 starts, so he's not kind of got the experience in the locker which a lot of horses would have done in order to win this. However, I think that kind of helps him in the fact the handicapper doesn't really know where he is with him. It's that unexposed tag I like. I'd be shocked if he wasn't better than 139, especially at Chepstow, where he comes live on the ground he often loves. And Paul Nicholls has been very bullish about him in his recent comments. Says the only thing he's got to work out is who rides him and what happens with riding plans. That's one thing. It's undecided with the weights and everything, whether Harry Cobden can do the weight, it will take the ride, will be at Kempton. If not, Logan Williams has been penciled in to take the ride. So there's a little bit of head scratching down at Team Ditchy in regards to jockey bookings, but nonetheless, he's fit, he's well, he will run, he'll have no weight on his back, he loves the venue, and I think he's rock solid and will be bang there.
Yeah, that's it. That's a really interesting point, actually. Let's pretend that Kempton does exist, and if you're the first choice jockey, because I know Harry Cobden probably won't be there, or he might be, or whatever. And we've got Trucker's Lodge here, Yala Enki, and Give Me a Copper as well. Who would you ride?
It was me, yeah. Trucker's Lodge, definitely. I just think it's the race for him, if that makes sense. I think that is just he's the one that this has been his target. This is his Gold Cup. His whole season revolves around this race. Everything else after this is kind of after Lord Mayor's show, if you like. So. As you say, off 139, everything in his favour, he's got to go well. I understand the concerns about his lack of experience in a big field, etc., etc. But Cody Gree won a Gold Cup on his 4th start. I think the stat can kind of get a bit overplayed. If you can jump a fence, you can jump a fence. And from what I've seen so far, he's a pretty smart jumper, given his inexperience. So no, Trucker's Lodge all the way for me. I'd be very disappointed if he was out of the frame.
Now, so much graded action going on over Christmas, and one of the more open ones is the Christmas Hurdle at Kempton. Now, this 2-mile division feels really, really wide open. A lot of the protagonists have failed to show up so far. Classical Dream was beaten on reappearance. Beaver Dare, unfortunately, is injured. We lost Aspire the Land, sadly, over summer. So, it really feels like this race, potentially, whoever wins this has a real say, hopefully, in March as well.
Well, you'd hope so, wouldn't you? Yeah, I mean, you also have to throw in Saudi A, of course, who toppled Classical Dream, but subsequently picked up a knock. So it is an absolute head-scratcher at the moment, the 2-mile hurdle division. Of course, Pentland Hills, who's a horse I'm quite keen on for the big one in March, if you like. I mean, he did shape really well at Cheltenham on his comeback until pretty much he hit the hill and then stopped and ran backwards. Connections pretty much say it was just fitness, nothing more than that. Call Me Lord, of course, won the race. The whole form line of the 2-mile division is perplexing at the moment, given that the proximity of Ballyandy, no disrespect to him, but 6 months ago, Ballyandy would have been about 150 to 1 to win a champion hurdle, and yet he was finishing upsized Call Me Lord in the international. So the whole form lines of the kind of 2-mile hurdle division do have a real head scratcher feel, and we're hoping we just see something come out of the Christmas hurdle and blow them away, don't we? Really, that's what we want to see. And Fusel Raffles, I suppose, is the horse. He's the kind of buzz horse, if you like, going into this race, where big things are expected from him. He was kind of workmanlike on the seasonal reappearance when winning with Hanson, but that, as Nicky Henson said, he only barely had him at about 70% that day. He'd only got a little bit of work into him, and Henson's could have, of course, the mares Verdana Blue and Akatanti in the race as well, depending on ground. So it's a race which doesn't have to kind of stand out
perform already in it, but I'm sure something's got to come out of it and do good. It will be sod's law that there's 5 of them in a line jumping the last, and a 25 to 1 outsider wins, and we know no more in regards to champion hurdle picture. But it will, from just my point of view, the 2 I grab my eye, if you like, is one that gets away Trump, reversing back over hurdles, kind of knocking his novice chase campaign on the head. He will be interesting. You say a look on official ratings, he's right in amongst all these. He's perfectly entitled to have a crack at this. And Paul Nicholls has said, look to the Kingwell hurdle after this, and then make up their minds as to kind of, is he up to champion hurdle class or not? But I mean, that could be the kind of point. There is no kind of champion hurdle class at the moment. It's a fairly wide open division, and Elixir Donut, of course, is the other one who only recently reappeared at Cheltenham and ran well for a very long way. I mean, he was a huge drifter on the day. I mean, his price almost trebled, I think, from the opening show in the morning. And he, to my very untrained eye, I mean, I can't really talk, but I look at my midriff. But I thought he was carrying plenty of condition at Cheltenham. I think it was a lot to work on there. So Leopardstown is now one to keep your eye on. But as you say, it's a bit of a head scratcher. We're waiting for something to come out and really grab the bull by the horns, and hopefully we see that on the 26th.
No standout star in the 2 mile division at the moment, but plenty of big names in the novice chasing division. And there's one race at Limerick which, fingers crossed, turns out the way it is, because at the moment, with 3 market leaders here in Sam Crow at 9 to 10, Lorena at 7 to 2, and Faugheen, who's rising 12 in less than a fortnight, who's 11 to 4 as well. This could be a real corker.
It could be, couldn't it? Now, it can be a bit of smoke and mirrors or cloak and daggers, whatever you want to call it, the Irish racing entry stage. But the kind of vibes we're getting is essentially going to be Sam Crow against Faugheen in that contest, I think, Nick, with likely Lorena against Faugheen going to Leopardstown, and then Battle over Doyen taking the 3 mile route over the Christmas period. So, yeah, as you say, Faugheen against Sam Crow would be an absolute belter. Obviously, Sam Crow coming there on the back of a fall makes life a little bit more difficult against Faugheen, who I thought, you've got to be honest, he was a horse who spent so long over hurdles that I was actually really impressed with how he jumped on his chase debut to win. You know, you just think kind of habitually he would have been so used to hurdling that you thought, I just thought at the age of 11, I almost put a line through him with a kind of chasing career ahead of him. But no, that's why Willie Mullins knows a lot more about training horses than me. And despite his advancing years, I can't see him winning a Grade 1 at kind of Cheltenham or Aintree, but he could easily throw his weight around in these novice chases in Ireland in the meantime. And this could be his time to shine, couldn't it? If he takes on Sam Crow, whose confidence has been jaded from a full last time out, then who knows? He could capitalise. So, yeah, that's some cracking novice chase action in Ireland over the next few days. And, of course, you touched on Lorena and Faugheen as well. They're definitely ones to look at. And then I think Mellon's in there. There's really, really fascinating novice chase scene at the moment. The Irish side of things from that perspective does look a lot more exciting than perhaps the English counterpart, shall we say.
Definitely. I mean, the thing that just kept me going, as you say, there's a real chance that he could win a Grade 1 novice chase. And to have a 12-year-old in single figures for a race like the JLT, the mind just perplexes. It really does.
Yeah, I was going to say, it kind of sums up the overall kind of mantra of the season at the moment. I mean, we've had a lot of soft ground. There's a lot of horses. Listening to Nicky Henderson being interviewed saying, I'm still holding back horses. Essentially, I want some good ground for. But I'm going to have to run them sooner rather than later. We're going to run out of time. And so, as you say, I think that's why we're getting these kind of almost few red herring form lines at the moment, because we've had some heavy ground small field contests, and as a consequence, it's just those who cope with conditions are getting out and getting on with it. And as I said, this could be just the time for Faugheen to cash in now, really, where I think he will find life a lot tougher in 4 or 5 months' time, which is, perfectly fair. But yeah, good luck to them now if they can, topple Sam Crow here. And then add another one up to bouts. I mean, he's already been a mega star of a horse, isn't he? But I mean, it would be almost unheard of banging in Grade 1s on the eve of your novice chases on the eve of your 12th birthday.
Now, it would be rude not to ask you for a couple of anti-post bets as well. I believe you've got 2 for us, starting potentially with one that might shorten in price after the Christmas hurdle over in Ireland.
Yes. Now, I was just looking through the anti-post markets, and obviously 3 mile, the staying hurdle division. Obviously, Emma Tom, I'm a big fan of. He's been my long-term fancy for the stayers hurdle. But if you take him, and I think, if the cat fits Paisley Park, you suddenly start becoming quite thin on the ground with horses, to be honest with you. I think can kind of come from left of field or improvers, if you like. So I thought Mouse Morris has Sam's Profile, who was a pretty useful horse last year. He ran pretty well for a long way at the Cheltenham Festival in his novice contest. And he's just the type who I think, put it this way, it's the only race he could possibly run in at the festival. He wouldn't run in a Coral Cup off top weight or something like that. If he makes it to Cheltenham, it's going to be the Stayers Hurdle. He's in the 3 miler on his comeback at Christmas. They've decided it's too late in the day to go novice chasing with him. So he had a very minor setback over the summer. So they're going to roll the dice as far as hurdles are concerned. And again, it's just a bit like the Champion Hurdle was really wide open. I think the Stayers Hurdle was very top heavy. And once you kind of go beyond the top 3 in the market, I think you can pretty much make a case for anything getting involved. And Sam's Profile, he's young, he's unexposed. We don't really know how good he is. I'm sure 3 miles will be his bag. And yeah, I think he's a little bit underrated, shall we say, in the anti-post market.
Now, from staying hurdlers to novice chasers, there's a horse carrying familiar colours as well that you'll have a look at.
Very much so. I was looking through this RSA chase market, then I'm still in the glass half empty camp as far as Champ is concerned. Clearly a very good horse, but clearly got his quirks. And 25 to 1, Pim, who of course carries the colours of famous Altior, I think the market probably underrates him still at 25 to 1. Yes, he doesn't have the profile over hurdles of which some of those others ahead of him have had from last year, which is why I think in a way he pretty much is underrated, because people are, I think, a little bit sniffing at his form. He's rated 137 over hurdles. There's likes of Champ and Battle Over Doyen rated pretty much a stone higher than him over smaller obstacles. Yet that doesn't really matter in the way I view it. Since Pim has gone over a fence, he really has improved, and he's also very much improved for the step up to 3 miles. He won really nicely, I thought, at Ascot, beating Highest Sun, Colin Tizards, who's come out and won again since, and then he got the job done, albeit in a small field, but I was just really impressed with the way in which he jumped around Cheltenham last time out on that was ground that would have been soft enough for him. So I think he's almost a horse based on his hurdle form. People have almost kind of dismissed a little bit, but he's rated 152 now. The BHA official ratings are suggesting he's improved over a stone since switching defences. So who's to say he can't continue to improve some more? And listening to the connections, they're saying perhaps they're going to rough him off now for the next month with the deep winter ground and come back to the Reynoldstown in February, of course, which would suit him nicely, given that he's already got quarter distance form around there. So I think Pim 25 to 1. I think he's still, again, I think he is a little bit underestimated in the anti-post markets, and I think he could be a pretty useful candidate in the RSA in which if we did get some better ground in the spring, that would not inconvenience him at all.
Brilliant, Ed. Thank you so much for chatting to me, and hopefully see plenty more Collins from you in the new year as well.
Indeed. Well, thank you very much. Happy Christmas to everyone. And I'm going to convince Danny Mullins that Gavin Estate is worth watching, and also try and convince him a few of my bets are worth having as well. But no, it's been brilliant. And thanks everyone for listening, and we'll speak again soon.
Ed Quigley joining us here on the podcast. And if you are a fan of Ed, Long Shot Ted, as we call him in racing, his columns are available on horseracing.net. And don't forget, if you have enjoyed the podcast, or you continue to enjoy the podcast, we are told that the viewing figures and listening figures are constantly rising week in, week out. So thank you to everybody that is tuning in. And if you want to know when we are about and when the podcast will be going ahead and being live, then all you need to do is go onto YouTube, click subscribe. You can also listen as well on SoundCloud and Apple Music. You know what to do. Press like, press subscribe. You can hear myself and Nick talking about jumps racing. As we say, that is the end of the Christmas special. We've got through so much, but Nick, that's gone really quick.
It has. Some episodes of the podcast are just easy, aren't they? And I think this is going to rival the Cheltenham episode for things to talk about. We could have gone on for 4 hours, I think, if we wanted to.
So, right, I'm going to put you on the spot here very, very quickly. Give me a nap of the festive period, or give me a selection.
Oh, well, I think Lost in Translation will win the King George, and I've completely forgotten about everything else. Vintage Clouds, I think if he turns up in the Welsh National, would run really, really well, but could well go elsewhere. And I really hope Lakeview Lad goes well in the Royal Limerick as well.
I'm going to give a couple also. Kemboy to win the Savills, Each Way, Potter's Corner in the Welsh National. So there will be my selections as well over the festive period. Thank you very much, everybody, for tuning in, and we'll look forward to catch you all in the new year.